Welcome to the Bookkeepers. I'm Coco.
I'm Katie.
Let's talk some books.
This one is actually going to be about our top 10 underrated books that we feel you should read.
Yes. So, kick it off.
First is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This book is a fiction about a true crime that happens, and it is fantastic.
Yes, we both listened to this on audiobook last summer.
Yes.
Highly recommend doing the audio of this one. It is extremely unique.
It's got for one, let's just talk about the fact that it's got multiple voices. When you do an audiobook, you mostly get one person doing lots of different voices, right?
Yeah.
But this one, they bring in a new person every time there's a new voice.
Yes, it's a full cast narration audiobook. And just the format of this book is really clever. So you get your traditional story, which is Sadie, and it's her experience. She's looking for her sister,
Yes,
who is missing. And that's your typical what you get in books. But then it bounces in between a podcast.
Yeah, where it's like a journalist telling the story through
Of Sadie.
real time.
Yes, and he conducts interviews with family and townspeople, and it's
all in the hunt for this girl.
Yes, and it's just unique. It feels like you are listening to a podcast or a true crime documentary, and also watching it unfold through Sadie's chapters.
It's excellent.
It's really
Courtney
good.
Summers, she forever will be on the top of my list if she comes out with new material, new books, because this book for me did it.
Well, she has one that came out this year,
Yes, The Project.
The Project, which
It's cultish.
we're gonna plan to read that one.
I think we attempted to get it on NetGalley. They did not approve us. NetGalley, if you're listening, we
Sad.
really want that book.
Sad.
But
I think
we're
it's out.
waiting for it.
I think it's out now.
I know, I have a library hold.
Oh, yes.
Always waiting for library holds.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so the second book that we think is underrated is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This was her debut book.
It's been out for a couple years, right?
It has been out for a bit. I mean, we can look and see. Oh, there's a map.
Love maps.
It's been a bit since I've read this. 2015.
So it has been a little bit.
Yeah, so this is a duology.
This is definitely an underrated book.
Definitely
We
underrated.
should still be talking about this.
I've read everything that she's written. This is still my favorite, I think.
Oh.
I mean, her second duology, I really liked a lot too. But this one wins.
This is the start.
So it is a retelling of Arabian Nights.
Aladdin.
No, not Aladdin.
Okay.
Arabian Nights.
All right.
Different story.
I'm feeling you.
Okay. So in the story, the ruler, he's a Khalid, and every day he marries a bride, and the next morning he kills her. Savage. So her best friend is chosen as a bride and dies, and so she, the main character, decides that she is going to volunteer herself as bride and has a plan to get revenge for all the girls that have been killed and her friend.
Oh, exciting.
It's so good. So you should definitely read this one.
Okay, our next one is Black Flamingo, and we both did this last year. I don't remember what, but we did it almost simultaneously.
Yes.
On audio. Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. Blown away by the story.
I love him. So we didn't know right away, or we weren't aware, that it was narrated by the author himself.
Correct.
But halfway through, so the story is about, it's a kind of a coming of age story
Yes, definitely.
about a black teenager
Mm-hmm.
boy, and then it goes into his college experience too.
Accurate.
And he is part British and part Jamaican. And we were talking while we were reading it, like checking in with each other, that wow, this narrator really can capture both Jamaican and British accents
So well.
so well.
I was like, this is so greatly produced. Like, this person should be getting paid more.
Yeah, and then we looked into it and we're like,
Oh, it's the author.
it's the author, and it made so much more sense because it's sort of autobiographical, but not completely true to his story. But it has a lot of.
It's just one of those stories that, because the author puts so much of themselves into the story, you can feel that coming through the page.
Yes,
And then just hearing his voice, and when you registered that was him reading his own work.
it was great, and it's told in verse.
Yes.
I love a story told in verse, so it feels like a novel written in verse.
I'm pretty critical of these. I'm not drawn to these in general. But this one definitely set the bar for me, like, really high for a novel verse story.
Good.
It was really great.
It was really good. I mean,
There's definitely not enough people talking about it.
No. I really wish that we had the UK version because there are illustrations in the hard copy. Yes. I saw someone talking about the illustrations, and I was like, where are the illustrations at? And it's in the UK copies.
BRB. Going to order.
Someone send that to us. Thanks.
Need to buy that.
Yeah, so it's a great book. I love it. It has he gets into drag, and so it shows that whole adventure, and it's just like
It's a really beautiful story.
I just grinned the whole time.
Yes.
It's just a happy, well-developed characters, world, and I usually get bored with like contemporary storylines, but not at all with this one.
No, it was fantastic.
Highly recommend.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, so the next book is Daughter of the Pirate King.
The Pirate King.
I always get it, but I always say Daughter of a Pirate King. It's Daughter of the Pirate King, the only Pirate King.
What's the author?
Trisha
last name.
Levenseller. You've seen her name before. You've seen her name. So this is a duology as well.
Yes.
And
I have not read this one.
I loved it.
It's underrated for me.
It is a slow burn
Ooh.
romance.
I'm always here for a slow burn. The slower, the better.
Our main character, her name is Alosa.
What an interesting name.
And she is fiercely, unapologetically herself. And she is a trickster. And kind of like almost like the dirty worker of what her dad needs.
Ooh.
So he sends her out on task and she does things for him. But she's fierce. She also has an all-female crew that she manages, which is like huge in like pirate world.
I'm guessing we're in the sea.
Yes.
Good.
She is a pirate.
Fine.
She is a pirate. It's hilarious. And fantasy, you're gonna have some magic, and the slow burn.
It beats all the
Witty
boxes.
witty banter. This one's got it.
Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is Adrienne Young, which is probably an author that almost everybody has heard of currently. She was recently part of Reese's book club for y'all. Fable Namesake. It's a duology. It's brand spanking new. It's fantastic. And that's currently where she's getting most of her hype from. But we're going to talk about Sky in the Deep, which was her debut novel. And this one, for me, has my heart and probably always will. It's a Viking story about a girl who's ruthlessly a warrior.
Yeah.
Right?
We have a thing for this.
We have a thing for a warrior. And it's just about her story of searching for her purpose, her life, her family, what everything means, what her world is. And Adrienne Young does a great job of connecting you with a main character, rooting you with one person's story.
Yes.
And you're just totally involved in supporting the main character. Sky in the Deep, 100%. Debut novel you should read. Definitely doesn't get enough credit for what it is.
Yeah. I hope more people start to discover her now that she's kind of more in the spotlight with the Celebrity Book Club.
Yeah.
Things.
She's a great writer.
So this is going to be book number 6 on our underrated 10. Is called The Smell of Other People's Houses.
I have no idea what this one is. You really shocked me when you wanted to add this one to the list too. I was like, this is underrated for me.
Oh, so good. So it is a story set in Alaska.
Love Alaska.
Right? Like, how many books have you read set in Alaska?
Probably none.
Exactly. So it's set in Alaska, and it's a contemporary, and you follow kind of the storyline of several different people in the town. And it's younger characters, and it's what their day-to-day life is in Alaska. So it's really familiar because it's things that every teen goes through. But then it has so much of that experience of Alaska in there too, and how that shapes their way of life.
Right, how it's different.
Yes, and it was just character development
101.
beautiful. It is beautiful, and it really strung along, and it addresses teen pregnancy in there. There's some like hints on religion pieces in there that I think that we would like. We tend to enjoy books that challenge religion,
Push the boundaries.
And it had that in there. But it was one of those, I don't even know how I came upon it, honestly. I don't remember.
Probably Goodreads.
I guess. I don't know. I don't remember. But I read it and I was like, holy cow.
This was great.
That book is good. Yeah.
Those are the best ones.
Yeah, it really is. And the name was just so random, and it has this really...
It's literally so random. I questioned whether it was a real book.
You think about that, and it's like, you go into different people's houses, and they do have, like, unique smells.
100%.
And not like in a bad way.
No,
but just like,
different.
Yeah, and so it's kind of
or like if you get another piece of clothing from someone, that clothing has that house smell.
Yeah. And so it's just like, even though all these people lived in the same small town in Alaska, they each had their own...
They were different.
It's so good. So.
Exciting. Okay, so next we're going to do... Oh, I think this is actually yours.
Oh, I haven't.
You have the book over there.
But it's yours.
An Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir. Let's just take a moment of silence. This is a... we've got a mug.
Got a mug.
This was a part of a pre-order campaign.
For the 4th book that just came out and completed the quartet.
The quartet, let's say that again. The quartet, which is not often done by authors. You typically get 4 books ever. There's very few, unless you're in like a really big story and you get like 7 or 8 books or something like that.
Yeah.
Saba is an incredible storyteller. Like, her big thing is the kahani. She talks about it a lot on her Instagram, and it's just a storyteller. And it really just
in love.
I can't say enough. If you want fantasy, if you want angst, if you want love, if you want family, if you want pushing the boundaries of like what is the norm, this is the book for you.
High stakes. I love it. It starts off with Laya, the main character, and her brother is taken. Because he was doing things that was against the rules. He's taken. And so she partners up with the Underground Rebellion, and she goes undercover as a spy in their like military training academy.
Yeah, but you also get another POV which is Elias, and he works for the military.
He's in the academy
that is attacking
he is
her
her
brother.
enemy.
Yes.
He
And it's just that trope that, like, these two people who should hate each other end up having more connections than they could possibly imagine.
And they're in a world that is designed to pit them against each other.
Yet, they're like magnets.
It's really great. And it has, like, Middle Eastern folklore and magic.
It's so different. It's not your typical fantasy world. And
it's great.
Saba... Okay, for one, if you want great Instagram content, follow Saba. She's fabulous, hilarious. It's great.
Yeah.
We recommend this one. I definitely, almost 9 out of 10 times that I talk to someone and mention this series, they're like, oh, I haven't read it. And I'm like, stop what you're doing.
It's one that I think that people are, like...
Especially now that all 4 books are out.
Yeah, people are aware of it. They're like, oh, I've heard of it. But, like, no one's read it.
You should definitely read it.
You should read it. And I like it, too, because you don't really have that weird middle book issue. Like, each book has...
There's no murky middle.
There's no murky middle. It's a great series.
Yes. Sometimes book 2 in a trilogy can get funky. You're like, wait, where are we going here?
And talking about full cast narration, we did the audiobook on this one too. And so in the first book, you have 2 POVs, which is Elias and Laia.
Yes.
And then I'm not going to tell you who the next one is, but in the second book, you get another POV. And then with every book,
you get more.
You get another added POV, which you're like dying for.
She just goes deeper into the story. It's just more points of view that you need in the story. Oh, you're the next one. Because I haven't read this one either, but it is on my list.
I'm going to force them in her hands. As I did with the Throne of Glass series.
Accurate.
Throw them at her, as we are you. So, the next book that you should definitely read that's underrated is The Fifth Season, which is a trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. This is going to be like adult sci-fi fantasy.
Ooh. I love when we push our boundaries of what we read typically.
I will say it's like a lot of world building, and it's one of those books that you have to pay attention to.
Right, you got to be ready for it.
You got to be ready for it.
It's not a casual read.
It's not a casual read. You have to be ready to pay attention to it, because you're going to be really confused probably through most of the series. But you're confused to the point to where you're like, I kind of know what's going on, but I'm still confused a little bit. You know, and so there's a lot of guesswork. So that makes it unpredictable.
Right.
And it ties in, I'm telling you, at the end, you're just like, mind blown.
All the books are out?
Yes.
Okay.
All 3 books are out.
This is always helpful.
Yeah, so I read them all back to back to back.
Oh, jeez.
So that's how good they
busy.
were. Yeah. And I did it as a buddy read, and I recommend that too, because it's helpful to bounce all your theories and confusions.
We buddy read a lot of things.
Peer pressure.
Also, we have like FOMO, you know. We don't want to one of us doesn't want to read that thing.
Oh, I want to read that. Yeah. It's so good. I think I read it in 2019, and it was my favorite book of that whole year that I read.
Oh, big statements.
It was so great.
All right, next one is currently you can watch it on TV, but it is Words on Bathroom Walls by Julia Walton. And this one I really love because it is short chapters. So it's not a thick book, as you can tell. It's a thin book, but every sentence in this book matters. You know, it is one of those books that changes the way you see a person. Right?
It does. And like you
so you do synopsises better than me.
Okay.
So why don't you synopsises up for us?
So this book is about Adam. It's a young adult contemporary book. Adam has schizophrenia. And schizophrenia is typically diagnosed in like early 20s. It's not as frequently diagnosed in a teenager.
Younger.
So this whole book is told in the format of journal entries to his therapist.
Because he doesn't speak.
Because he speaks to other people. He just refuses to speak at therapy. Yeah. And so he is on a new experimental drug. And that's why he's in therapy, is to see if this experimental drug can help him. And he is also entering into a new school, and it happens to be a Catholic school. He's not Catholic, and there's a lot of hilarious... If you're sensitive to religious humor, you probably won't like it. But it's hilarious religious humor in there. It's so great.
It's a really good book.
I am not a crier. Like, I do not cry at books.
I'm the opposite.
She cries at every book.
Cries at every book.
This one...
Sobs.
I don't know if sobs...
Oh, straight sobs.
You would definitely sob.
Sob.
I cried a bit at the end of it. It was so good. And as you mentioned, they did do a movie adaptation, so I'm surprised that I haven't seen more people read this, because it does have movie adaptation.
But I think it just recently...
Well,
it came out in 2020.
Yes, the pandemic.
So I don't think many people were going to the theater whenever this one came out.
I didn't. I really wanted to.
That's probably what slowed it down some.
I really wanted to. So it just came to Amazon Prime this week. I watched it with my husband, and he really loved it. The other part too is that you get to meet Adam's hallucinations almost as characters, and they're so
exciting.
They're so vividly written.
Yeah, I'm like 100 pages from the end, and I've basically been putting off the end because I don't want the end to come.
You're not ready.
So, I'll get there.
It's beautiful.
So I guess we're at our last one, number 10 on our list of most underrated books is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. Mm-hmm. Guys, if you're not reading this book, if you have not read this book, The Grace Year, it is like Handmaid's Tale versus The Hunger Games, honestly.
Yeah, that's good. That's good comp titles.
If I was going to put comp titles on it, those are the comp titles I would put on it. And I think it's beautifully written. Mm-hmm. You want to sum it up for us? Because
yes. So it's a young adult dystopian novel.
Dystopian.
And we're in a world where girls are believed to have magic, and not in a good way. Their magic is like...
It's considered...
less than.
Yes.
They're evil. And their magic...
It's a problem.
Their magic comes at a peak during their 16th year.
Yes.
So therefore, the society sends the girls away.
Away.
Into the woods.
On their own.
To a camp on their own.
And it's mysterious because no one really knows what happens.
You are forbidden to talk about. They call it your grace year because it's the year you're, it's not your fault. You have this magic that needs to be purged from your body. So you got to go purge it. And then when you get back, you get married. But you're not allowed to talk about what happens. But what we do know is that whenever not all girls come back, and some of them come back scarred and mutilated.
Missing limbs,
missing fingers, and some are dead. So it's this terrifying event, and you get to go through with it with this main character.
This book has a death in it.
Spoiler alert.
That I don't believe is a death. FYI.
It's to be determined.
To be determined. There's no sequel. There's no sequel. Any more story, but Kim, if you're out there watching, if you want to write the story and you want to tell me death is not death, I'm listening.
I will say I hate the cover art of this one. I don't picture her with pink hair. This feels too sci-fi for me.
Okay, but there's a UK version that we approve of.
Yeah.
It's a white cover, and it's got there's a flower that has a lot of meaning to the whole story, and that is on the cover.
Yeah, and I remember because I got an arc of this on NetGalley the year it came out, and because the description sounded badass.
I mean, I read this book on ebook.
That's what I'm saying, I did too.
And it's got to be a great book for me to read it on ebook.
Yeah, because we're print lovers and audio lovers.
Yeah, if I'm reading on my Kindle, I'm desperate for the book.
Yeah. It's great.
That's great.
Those are our top 10 underrated books
that you should be reading if you haven't.
I think Katie's going to read.
Yeah, there's a few I got to catch up on.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Bye.